Everyone. Welcome to this Money Guider Scotland Network event, which is all about the importance of having insurance. I'm really pleased to welcome Craig and Eva from Barclays Customer Care Team. I believe they're sitting in their lovely Glasgow office at the moment. So a warm welcome to you guys, and thank you again for coming along to present to our network members. Before I hand over to Craig, who's going to lead the bulk of the delivery, I just want to share a couple of things. I'll first ask, is there anyone on this session who hasn't attended a Money Guiders Scotland Network event before? You can use the little raise your hand icon reaction if this is your first time. Oh, it looks like everyone's returning, which is great. Oh, we've got 1, 2. Excellent. Great to have you here, Tracy, Susanna. Excellent. Well, welcome back to those who are used to and seasoned to these events. By all means, everyone new and existing, you know that you're very welcome at this table and within the Q&A practice. For this session, you're welcome to use the chat facility if you have any questions, pop in any comments. So that's at your disposal, and you can also use the react icons. This session is scheduled for an hour. So we'll have plenty of time to talk and discuss at the end, but you can raise your hand if you have any questions, and Craig and Eva there will be able to help answer and perhaps do some little bits of signposting. But just a reminder for everyone, we are a rich and vibrant community. There's over 3 million money guidance practitioners in the UK, and by being part of the Money Guiders programme and the networks, we're all really connected to each other. So I'll give you some updates at the end of this session about some of the latest developments for the Scotland network, and if there's any other business, we might have time to come to that if you've got any questions or suggestions for the network following this. But I won't take up too much oxygen. With pleasure, I'm going to hand over to Craig, who's going to lead us through this session about insurances.
Thanks, Heather, and thanks everyone for joining us today. Just before we start, I can see Tracy, you've got your hand up. Are you just looking to ask a question before we begin, or you might have hit on it? You might have pressed it accidentally. And don't worry if you have.
No, that was accidentally, sorry.
No, that's fine, not a problem. So as I say, yeah, thanks for joining us. We're just going to switch over the screens. As you can see, the slide that Heather had shared this afternoon was just the importance of having insurance. So just bear with me to switch this over. Heather, could you just let me know if you can see that okay?
Yep, got you.
Brilliant. So this is just from the Barclays website. I know it's saying life insurance just now, but we're going to touch on a few different insurance covers today. What we usually find with customers, it probably falls into 2 categories. So there's customers who know that they probably should have insurance, but they say they can't afford it. And then there's people who don't know anything about insurance. They're not sure why they should have it. So for all insurance, basically what it does, it gives you peace of mind, and it gives you a blanket cover. If something goes wrong, you've got that there to protect you. So starting with life insurance, as you can see, life insurance would pay out to your family or your loved ones to keep them financially secure if you were to die and become terminally ill. So again, I know it can sometimes be a bit of a morbid subject, and it is sensitive, and I'm just going to touch on that again. If this is sensitive and it relates to you on a personal level, then you feel free to leave the call if you need to do that. But it just highlights the importance of having it, and that's one thing we find people say like they're not planning to die, so why should I have it? On the affordability side of it, premiums can start not just with Barclays or through legal in general. They can start as cheap as £5 or £6 a month. With the offer that we've got running just now, and again, we use legal in general through Barclays. You don't have to do this, but we've got an offer running till the end of June next year, whereas if a customer or client was to protect their family and take out a policy, then after 5 or 6 payments, they would get a £75 e-voucher. So that's just a thank you saying taking it out with Barclays. So when somebody wants to, just bear with me, get a quote. There's a few ways they can do it. So in this day and age, most banks or places will allow you to get a quote online, or you'll be able to do it through your mobile banking. Most policies you can pay monthly. With most life insurance policies, it's a bit different from home and car, where you usually pay it on a monthly premium, or on a monthly basis, I should say. But there's no interest added, so you're not charged any more for paying it monthly. I think from the side that we see it, so some people, as I say, they're saying, "Oh, I'm not planning to die, or I'm too young to take it out." The younger you take it, then the more value for money you get. So, for example, an 18-year-old maybe paying £10 a month for 30 years term, they would maybe be insured for £200,000, whereas somebody who's maybe 50, taking it out for 20 years, paying £10, they might be only covered for £50, because the older you get, the more expensive it becomes, just due to risk of closer to passing away, and there's more risk that there's going to be health problems. On a kind of scenario basis, we've seen it where from two sides of it. So we've had somebody that had life insurance in place, and they've come back and said thanks very much, because what it meant was they could stay in the house with their children, so they didn't have to move house. Their kids didn't have to move school, so they weren't having to commute longer, or they weren't having to take them away from their friends. And they were actually able to either retire or take a career break, or even go part-time to be able to do the school runs, or just spend some time with their family. So I think that's the side that people sometimes don't consider, because, as I say, they're not planning to die, or they think it's never going to happen to them. Is there any questions so far? Because I know that's quite a lot of information to take in. And again, if there's no questions, then that's absolutely fine. Brilliant. That must mean I'm doing my job okay. So the next one we're going to move on to was home insurance. So at the moment, Barclays don't offer home insurance. When, I know this was kind of one of the things you were possibly looking to find out. When a customer is looking for insurance, there's probably a few ways that they'll probably do it. They'll either just go with their bank. So their bank's going to have a reputable insurance company that they use. They'll possibly ask family or friends who they're with. And again, I know just because your family and friends are maybe with a particular provider, that might not be the right thing for you. And then you've got your comparison sites that you use. Again, we were doing a session earlier on this morning, and what we were saying was the ones at the top, just because they're the cheapest, might not necessarily be the best, provide the best cover, or it might not be the best option for you. The home insurance is split into two sections. So you've got your buildings, and then you've got your contents. So your buildings is a physical structure. So if you ever imagine you could lift up your property and tip it upside down or to the side, anything that moves, so like all the white goods in your kitchen, your jewellery, your clothes, anything that moves is your contents. And that's a common factor that a lot of folk think when they're renting a property. They don't need home insurance because it's a landlord that's responsible for everything, but they're only responsible for the building side of it. So if you were to be flooded, or your house was to go on fire, or you were robbed, how do you replace all your possessions? And I think roughly if you go per room, on average, each room is worth about £5,000. And again, that's on average, so some will be worth less, some will be worth more. At Barclays, we have our home insurance, so you can pay it monthly to help with budgeting, or if you've got the money there to pay it outright, then that's also an option. We don't charge you for paying, we don't charge you any additional cost or interest for paying it monthly. So if it was £120 a month, £120, trying to do this easy maths for myself. If it was £120 a year and you wanted to pay that over 10 months, we won't charge you anymore. And again, we've had scenarios where people have not had it in place while they've been renting. Okay, they've been able to get an accommodation, but they're then left with no money for clothes, all the kind of stuff that you probably take for granted. And this is where potentially people have had to start asking for like kind of fundraising and extra help and doing just giving pages. And again, some of us are based down in Ayrshire. There was a story recently that happened, unfortunately, to somebody that their house went on fire, they did lose the majority of their possessions, they didn't have any cover in place. And again, this cover can start from £5-6 a month. Even the basic cover, that if something does go wrong, then you've got protection in place. And then just to touch on like the cost of living, when we were looking at budgeting with people, or when people are struggling, it's probably one of the first things that they look to cancel. So we can look, can we get it any cheaper? Or what can you maybe change in your lifestyle that means you can still afford that premium? So for example, we'll have people that would potentially protect their mobile phone before they would have life insurance. And to a certain degree, we do understand that, because one, it's a choice, and you're still alive. If you lose your phone, you've experienced that. You're obviously not going to experience dying. And with your phone these days, everything's on it. So you get your pictures, you do your banking on it. It's basically your life. So that's why it's so important to them. And we do understand, we've had challenges before where if I was to protect my home, my life, all my possessions, I just can't afford to get that. So sometimes there is a choice of what's most important to you. Oh, Helen, good timing, because I was just going to ask if there's any questions.
Hi, yeah, I just wanted to ask a couple of questions. See, when you're valuing your items for your house insurance for contents, most people either undervalue or maybe overvalue. What would be the standard amount that you should? Like you said something about 5,000 per room, but that might be undervaluing a particular room. It's hard to do it. I think it's just you're kind of guessworking a lot of the time when you're doing it.
No, definitely. The Barclays policy that we have, it was unlimited for both buildings and your content, so you didn't have to specify how much you wanted to cover. We were just looking for you to specify like any high value items. So if you had I think it's anything that's worth £2,500 on its own with Barclays, you need to specify. But other than that, you don't need to. You don't need to tell us a certain value. But you're right. Some companies will say, "Do you want to be covered up to 50,000 or 20,000 or 100,000?" And how do you know exactly how much you want to be covered for?
Thank you. The other thing I was going to ask you is, if you get flooded from your house, so I'm going to use myself. I've been flooded by my neighbour 7 times. And I never claimed insurance because I didn't want to at the beginning. I tried to do as much as my own, but then obviously I eventually claimed because it was getting ridiculous. But now I'm penalised, I feel, because I'm now for like your excess. So it makes it, this is where people maybe start to think about, is it worth it? The excess now for flooding general now has gone up anyway. So excess that I would have to pay is £750 if I get flooded. But I think general it's between £350 and £500. And I've looked at different insurance policies. They all seem quite a standard thing now, that because it's obviously a high risk thing in most properties. I'm just curious, does that that's going to affect when you do insurance how much you're going to have to pay, isn't it? It's going to constantly affect the amount that you pay regularly. You're never going to get a kind of cheaper amount, is what I mean. Cheaper
yeah,
insurance.
You're right. So it's there to give you peace of mind and protection, but unfortunately, if you do have to use it and you're claiming, when it comes to the renewal price, it can unfortunately go up. I would need to double check with Barclays, but some companies only like increase the premium for the bit that you've claimed on, if that makes sense. So if you've claimed for, I know, and you're right in saying, because escape of water is one of the main claims. So every insurance company has more or less bumped that up because it's costing them too much, and it's the most common claim. But if you claim for flooding, it might go up. But then if you were claiming for theft, the excess might be a bit lower.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much.
But that is a good point, because that's actually something I'd forgot. So with the excess, so the excess is how much you pay once you're making a claim. So it's a bit, you maybe know this if you drive, the higher your excess, then the less either your annual premium or your monthly premium. But obviously it means if you do need to claim, you're forking out maybe £750 rather than paying £250. So again, that just kind of covers the individual benefit. And then another kind of, maybe not, I suppose they're still common. You can, as I say, we touch on there's more phones in the UK than actual people, and you can protect your mobile phone and your gadgets, so you can protect them if they're lost, if they're stolen, if they stop working. So you can definitely do that. The excess when you're claiming varies on what you're claiming for. So if you're claiming for a damaged screen, it'll be a lot less than if your phone has been lost or stolen. And then another key one that some people will risk, so they won't have travel insurance. So again, travel insurance, you can pay monthly or you can have an annual premium. A lot of folk do risk it, but at Barclays, again, you're covered up to £10 million worth of cover, because if you are abroad and something does go wrong, it can be extortionate to pay for the medical fees. I know a lot of insurances the travel insurances will not cover if you're exposing yourself to risk or if you're under the influence of alcohol and drugs. But for any kind of normal claim, it's definitely one to have. And again, some people will pay that monthly. They'll do it through the post office, or they'll just pay it on an annual premium.
I think we have a wee question from Tracy. Sorry, Tracy, your hand was up. Do you have something to ask of Craig?
No, I think the hand thing was up from.
Is it just stuck?
It's still, sorry, I saw it pop up again. Apologies,
Yeah,
Tracy.
no, it's just stuck there for some reason.
That's okay.
What you'll kind of find with most banks, so most banks these days are unable to give advice of like how much cover somebody would have. Again, at Barclays, if you have got a mortgage, the mortgage advisors can give you advice, but we can definitely guide people through how to do it. So we're not going to leave them on their own. There is financial advisors out there. Some you don't need to pay a fee for, and they'll get a fee paid from the insurance company. But some financial advisors do charge for their advice. So you'll probably find that if you're doing it yourself through Go Compare or Compare the Meerkat or Compare the Market or through a bank, then there's no fee to do it. As well with banks, a lot of them you don't need to bank with a particular bank to have the life insurance policy. So a lot of people will probably go to the bank that they bank with, but you could have a policy with Barclays through Legal & General, and you don't need to have an account with us.
Helen, do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, just a quick question. I noticed in the last few years that some insurance companies, and I don't know, it used to not be with banks, but I don't know if the banks are doing this, but some of the insurance companies are taking out credit on your behalf if you are going to pay it up monthly, and it shows up it becomes on your credit file. Whereas before you used to just take out your insurance with your bank and you agreed to pay 20, 30, whatever it was a month. But I noticed in the last few years when you do that with certain insurance companies, they actually take it out with creation or something like that. They'll take out credit for that amount. Is that a common thing? Is that something that banks are starting to do?
I don't think it's something banks are starting to do, but I know from seeing customers' accounts and that creation, it says like creation consumer finance or whatever it might say. I know that is like one that do it. But no, if you were through Barclays and you're £10 a month for Legal & General, that won't show on your credit score. You're just paying for what you're paying for every month.
Okay, thank you.
One of the kind of questions that how would you know who to go with? And I've kind of touched on it slightly, and the kind of importance of doing your research. So you might have heard the Legal & General that Barclays use. The logo is the one with the kind of small umbrella. So on the right-hand side here, it says you're in safe hands. So Legal & General is over 180 years of experience, and they've paid out on 97% of life insurance claims in 2018. I don't actually know if that's went up or down, because I know 2018 is obviously five or 6 years ago. The reason it's not 100%, can anybody tell me why it might not be 100%? And again, don't worry if you don't know. It's because people lie on their applications. So when you're going through for whatever insurance it is, there's a list of questions that usually kind of involve risk. So for example, if you work at heights of above 50 feet, from statistics, there's more likely that you're going to have an accident at work because there's more risk and you're working higher up. If somebody says no to that, but they actually do, and it turns out that that's the cause of the death, then that's potentially not going to get paid out. And that's really all we were looking to cover today, unless there is any further questions. I think Ellen's just going to kind of come back in here.
Yep.
Sorry,
Go,
I'm
Helen. No, you're not.
Sorry,
You've got
No,
great
it's fine. This is
questions,
good.
Helen. Good questions.
I just wanted to ask you another question about, and this has always confused me. When you go with, say, Barclays or whoever your bank is, they give you life in general, that's who you're going to be insured with. But then you then get another company that's an underwriter. I never ever understand that. So sometimes you think you're being insured by one company, but they use underwriters. And I never, I wish they would just tell you that you could go directly to them. I don't know how that all works. It just confuses me sometimes.
So you're right, you can. It's just that banks don't really facilitate or have it like within them to like write the life insurance policy. So they're using a life insurance company, if that makes sense. So at Barclays, we need to tell you, so say you have started a policy at £10 a month, Legal in General will pay Barclays X amount for the period of the term. So that's kind of how Barclays would make money, so to say. It's just that the bank don't actually have the facility to provide the policy. So that's why they tend to use somebody else.
Right, okay, thank you.
Gemma,
but you can just go.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. When you got.
No, go ahead.
No, it's fine. There you go.
I've got more to add.
I was just going to say you're right in what you're saying. You can just go straight to Legal in General's website.
Gemma, do you want to come in with your question?
Yeah, it wasn't really a question as such, more an observation just from insurances that I've had in the past. I think it's really important to reiterate to people that when your insurance documents come through, that they read through them with a fine-tooth comb and just make sure that everything's right, because I had a bit of a dispute with an insurance company a few years ago where they'd asked me if I had locks on my windows, which I have, but unfortunately some of them were broken and we didn't have the key for them. And I live in a council property, so it wasn't something that I could just replace myself. So I pointed that out, and then I rang up and queried it, and I said, you've put again in my insurance policy that all my windows are locked, but I want it noting that not all of them work, which is what I discussed at the time, because I knew that should anything happen, if I was burgled and it ended up in me losing some items, I don't think the insurance company would have paid, because they would have said that my windows weren't locked even though I'd stated they were. So I think just be really careful with that. So when you get your insurance documents, just make sure that people are really reading them through and that they've taken down all your details correctly, and don't be afraid to challenge them if they haven't.
No, it's a good point. So it's like, with any insurance, the onus is on the person to take responsibility or reasonable care as much as possible. So same as car insurance, if you leave your car unlocked and the keys in the ignition and somebody steals it, there's a very, very strong chance that the car insurance company is not going to pay out, because you've not taken the responsibility or reasonable care to protect that.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump in with a wee question, if that's okay. For a lot
Yeah,
of
that's fine.
people, there's a thing about loyalty, and if I stay with the same provider, and it goes for insurances, but many other things, banks, credit cards, companies like that. If you stay with the same provider, that there is an expectation there'll be some sort of loyalty rewarded, whether that's having cheaper premiums, etc. Have you got any particular kind of thoughts or comments about that, whether it's the right or wrong attitude, and maybe how we can gently challenge it, if we should be encouraging people to always do more research, see if they can get a cheaper premium elsewhere, particularly when budgets are getting cut and insurance is often the first to go?
I think people probably don't review it, or it's not at the forefront of their mind to review, or they don't know that they could review it more or save money on a regular basis. So we've had some people, whether they've just been set up with the policy through a financial advisor, or at that time it was affordable, you do see policies at life insurance, for example, at 60, 70, £80 a month. Now that might be affordable to that person. It might be what they'll need, but a lot of the time we find that the cover, they could get the same cover or similar cover for a lot less. I know Martin Lewis goes on about it probably pays to switch. It's just keeping in mind that when you do switch, you might be saving money, but the level of cover might not be the same.
Very much. In terms of signposting to find insurers, Craig, I know you mentioned many banks provide it, and there's well-known companies like Legal in General, or perhaps places like Admiral, Direct Line, all providing insurance. But is there somewhere else that people can check? There's lots of price comparison websites. There's always unbiased.co.uk, which you can find insurance advisors at. Is there anywhere else, that people should be looking, or you would say, generally speaking, is something you found easier for people to search for insurances, broadly whole of market?
Comparison websites, been saying that. I know some companies are not always on comparison websites. For me, I would say probably see the bank one, see checking out how your bank use. They're going to use a reputable one, but as in comparing it with different websites. I was thinking about this, so like for example, see if you're hungry and you're looking for fast food, you're probably only going to go to like 4 or 5 different places. You're probably and this is just to kind of simplify it, you're probably only going to go to Burger King, McDonald's, whatever it might be, somewhere that you know. But I was thinking in insurance, if you didn't really know where to start, it is a bit difficult. Like, so how do you know that Direct Line or Legal in General provide life insurance? So it's probably through your bank, speak to family and friends, or comparison sites.
I think, Helen, have you got a wee question?
Yeah, I was just going to say, see, for the fact of scams, okay, people worry about scams, and I think that's probably why a lot, especially elderly people or older people, prefer to stay with the one provider. So if they were getting it through a trusted source like a bank, banks are always more likely to be trusted, especially when you're getting used to using your online and banking, etc. And there's so many sort of coming up insurance companies that you've never heard of before. You're more likely to be maybe vulnerable to scams, and I think that's what maybe puts people off. So it's a shame that maybe banks don't think about that when they're doing insurances, because people do like that loyalty to be able to stay and go to a trusted person, because it kind of minimises that risk a wee bit, maybe. I think that was just a statement I made, and not actually a question.
No, that's fine. It's a good statement. It's definitely a valid point. The same in like getting challenged again, why people don't have insurance. And again, it's a choice. If somebody doesn't want insurance, unless it's mandatory, the only two that you need to have are car insurance and buildings cover if you've got a mortgage. So, and the reason you need buildings cover is if something happens to your property, you still owe the money to the bank. So that's why it's mandatory that way. But some people just don't believe in it. Some people say they're not paid out, but you can see Legal in General have paid out nearly 100% of the claims. But all you can do is just give somebody the choice. As I say, some people know that they should have it and they maybe just can't afford it, or they tell themselves they can't afford it. And then there's people that just don't know that they should have it at all.
John, do you want to come in there with your question? Or if you can't hear, you can pop it into the chat. Are you there, John? You've got your hand raised.
Yeah, you got me now?
Yep, there you are.
Smashing. Yeah, using an insurance broker is generally going to be the best bet, a qualified, regulated insurance broker. Because when you do your buildings insurance, if you haven't covered the pipes from your house to the font, you might be charged. That might not be covered by your house insurance, or how far away it is to the nearest river or stream. These are all things that can void your insurance. So it's probably better to speak to a properly regulated insurance broker, find out what prices he's got, get 2 or 3 different quotes, and then do it yourself. Or use the broker. So that way it does it, you get qualified advice, and if you like them, stick with them. If you don't, do it yourself. So that's just personal for me.
That's a good point, John, as Helen's agreed. We are, well, certainly from my time, we know of unbiased.co.uk, which is like a signposting directory to connect people to insurance brokers, mortgage advisors, financial advisors. Is there any other way, or perhaps from your experience, John, that you have found a way to search for, regulated and whole market advice when it comes to insurances? Is there any other?
Yeah, I used to work in the industry myself. I don't anymore for quite some time. And I found that just looking at the comparison sites are a good starter for 10. But you really need to be going down the 5-star de facto rated companies that offer additional insurance for the buildings and the contents, so that if you do ruin a suite, you get the whole suite renewed rather than just a chair. Or if you have a flooding, that you've got the additional insurance that covers it from a dripping tap, as opposed to somebody just leaving a plug in and flooding the place, because a lot of companies won't cover that.
Okay.
They'll have it under basic insurance, but on the advanced insurance, the 5-star de facto stuff, you'll probably find that that's covered. So paying for the quality is far more important than the price, in my opinion.
Thanks for sharing that, John.
I think what they're trying to do with insurance in general is try and make it more basic, or is what John's just saying. So if you've got a 3-piece suite, it used to be, unless you added on matching items to your policy, if it was only one part that was damaged, we would only replace the damaged part. But now it's automatically included that if the other two parts are not damaged, we're not going to leave you with two seats and then one that's a mismatch. So that's automatically covered. And as John's saying, you can go in and see if the de facto is just like a rating of insurance and other things. It's out of 5 stars, so you can always check that out as well.
Excellent. Is there any top tips or advice you would give for anyone who is looking for insurance, whether it be for the first time or for renewal? The top tips to share that we can pass on to people that we speak with, and for ourselves probably as well.
For renewal, if you've got the time, definitely, or you want to, definitely like shop about, because as Martin always says, it does pay to shop about, because sometimes there isn't any loyalty. But if just kind of make sure that if you are getting something cheaper, is it giving you more or less the same cover? On life insurance, we do see it quite a lot. You can get life insurance from when you're 18 years old. Again, it's a choice, but the cheaper you get life insurance, or the sooner you get it, the cheaper it is, and the more you get for your money.
And is there anything that you can share with us, with the group, regarding insurance scams, in terms of what are the common ones that you're seeing or hearing of at the moment, and anything that we can look out for and encourage others to look out for?
I don't know if it will kind of relate directly to insurance, but probably kind of just like tradesmen turning up in your door and saying like you need your roof fixed. Again, it's more elderly and vulnerable people that they're targeting, and then just giving them an outrageous quote, either completing a shoddy job or just taking part of the money, or taking the money then disappearing. But insurance scams, we've not really heard of any insurance scams of late.
Okay, Katie, you've got a wee question. Would you like to come in?
Hi, yeah, I would just like to ask about income protection insurance, whether that's something that you would recommend for people, particularly maybe self-employed, people that have small businesses, or if it's something that came up on a course that we did recently, and I'd never sort of really heard of it, but it seems quite a useful product, but is it worth it? And obviously it depends on what kind of pay you get if you were off sick from your employer.
So unfortunately, we're unable to give advice. Most of that, I would say, is kind of done through a financial advisor or a broker. I suppose the only fact I can say is if you are self-employed and you're not working, then you're not making any money. That's probably as far as I could go in that subject.
Thank you.
Helen, jump in.
Yeah, it was just to say, I was going to type it in there. My friend actually had got that life protection. I don't know how I think she must have got it through or maybe through her mortgage. But when she was made redundant during COVID, just after COVID, she was so glad that she'd taken it out. And it's one of those things that I don't take out because I always think, oh, well, I really need it. But I was thinking it's out. But she said she paid a lot of money for it, though. It kept going up and up. It started off at £70 and then it ended up going up to nearly 200. So she used it when she needed it and she got another job, but it helped her during her redundancy. So it was just to say that. I think there might be some around. I don't know if they're still around now, but they were before COVID. So I don't know if that helps.
They're still about, as you say. They're probably less common. And I don't know if that was because COVID, obviously quite a lot of people lost their job during COVID, so that's possibly had an effect on it. But I suppose what you're saying, see how you're saying, just to use that as an example, that you don't have it. In an ideal world, everyone would have every insurance, but again, it's sometimes not financially feasible to have it. So we do understand that. So I suppose it's just picking what's most important to yourself. And we hear it all the time when something does go wrong, other than life, because obviously you're passing away, but people that say, oh, I wish they lose their phone, and then they say, oh, I wish I had just done that, I wish I had it. And it's not until it actually happens to you that a lot of people then say, right, well, I'm going to take it out just in case it happens again. But then there's some people, stuff happened to them, they're in a kind of bad situation, and then they don't protect themselves in the future. But again, it is a choice. That's what it kind of comes down to.
Got any? We've had some really fantastic questions. Anyone else got any questions or even observations, comments that are worthwhile discussing whilst we've got the eyes and ears of folk like Craig and Eva there?
Just a sort of final observation from myself. It's Gemma again. Sorry, I didn't raise my hand then. My apologies.
Okay, Gemma.
Okay. I was just thinking about like insurances, and I remember doing a meeting before, but I can't remember what it was for, where we was talking about insurances. And I think it's quite easy sometimes as well for people to be sort of almost suckered into taking out insurances that aren't really necessary. So I think just be really careful about that as well. Really think, do I need this insurance? And I think sometimes that can go hand in hand with like bank accounts that offer you extra things with the bank account. So things like mobile phone insurance, for example, that you might already be paying for through your contents insurance or something like that. So just be careful that you're not doubling up and you're not taking out insurances that you don't really need, because then that can become almost too expensive. That makes it too expensive instead of focusing on the ones that you do need.
Excellent point. Thanks for that, Gemma. Helen, your hand was up next.
Yeah, just to ask you, see when I was taking out my life insurance, I didn't realise until I was obviously spoke to my bank that I thought when you got life cover, it covers your mortgage, and then it covers like money for family and things like that. So, but I because like I don't have kids or anything like that, I was offered another option, which was enough. It's that one where it pays off the value, what's left on your mortgage or something. It's like the more you pay your mortgage, your amount that you get paid out, it only just pays off the remainder rather than a lump sum, if that makes sense. So there's loads of different versions of these, so it gets confusing for me, just like what's the best option. And I don't even know if that was the best option for me or not. It is quite a minefield, all this insurance. What's right for you?
It's a good point. So Barclays used to offer level and then decreasing cover. So the decreasing cover will be the one that you have or had. So that runs in line of how much you owe on your mortgage. As the mortgage decreases, your life insurance cover decreases only. So that's only going to, if something happens to you, it's only going to pay off the value of your mortgage. Whereas the other one, you could be insured for £200,000, your mortgage is £80,000, so the mortgage would get paid off, and then it leaves money to your family, which would obviously potentially cover funeral costs, help them with their education, and just make life a bit easier and in general a kind of a sad time.
Thank you very much.
John, you've got your hand up.
Aye, it was just coming back on that duplicate insurance that was mentioned earlier on there. You can insure your life and your well-being for as much as you like with how many other people you want to do it. But for things like cars or home and contents, that sort of thing, you can only be insured with one person. So if you have got into a position where you've insured yourself twice, you can claim that money back. You'd have to contact both insurers, of course, and decide which one's going to pay the money back, which one you took out first, how much was the best result. So it's always worthwhile going back and checking that, and never accept a renewal policy for anything. Always go back. Always go back, do a little bit of research, find the cheapest price, and tell your insurer this is what you've found. And quite often, they'll match it. Again, just me. That's all.
Very useful tips, John, and that's exactly what we need in having these kind of discussions whilst we're here, as you can share that knowledge, the insight and experience. So thanks, John, for sharing that. That's excellent. Any other questions, comments, observations, anything around insurances that anyone would like to ask or discuss? Okay.
I was just going to add in, so
Sorry,
Heather's get my email address. So if it's a question that's potentially a personal one or you don't want to ask in front of anyone, that's absolutely fine. Heather, you're good to share my email, or people can approach you to get my email, and they can drop me an email and we can go for there.
Excellent, you can do that, Craig. Just to make everyone aware, with Barclays Life Skills, it's an online learning platform for individuals, but there's also a section for those who help others, and I'll send out that link in a post-event email along with Craig's details. But we'll also share it's a download from it. So there's online learning, but there's a download, and it's all about the importance of having insurance. So I'll share that with you, which is probably, I would say, kind of more useful than the typical slides that you might see at an event. But this recording will be made available, as well as I'll send on those resources so you can have a scan through. I'll just quickly ask, whilst everyone's here, I'll give a wee hand to Craig and Eva, so thanks very much, guys. In terms of Money Guiders business folks, whilst we have a few minutes left, does anyone have any exciting news or any updates or anything that you'd like to share with your fellow members whilst we're here on this call? Because I'll wrap up just with a couple updates from the network, but does anyone have anything to share or ask? All quiet on the Western Front then. Okie dokie. If something does crop up, please feel free to get in touch, email, and I can share that out with members. I'm just going to make everyone aware, you may or may not be on the Community Hub, Money Guiders Community Hub, which is our online sort of platform or space where there's loads of resources, as well as past event recordings. So for example, today's event will be uploaded there, as well as our YouTube. Just want to make you aware, we've published a signposting support tool, for everyone in Scotland. This is on the Community Hub. It's got about 80 national organisations or helplines that are there that cover a wide range of things. So you can see there on that image on the right hand side, we've got sections of things like advocacy services, debt and money advice, organisations and charities that help with disabilities, cancer support, bereavement, veterans. So that tool is available if you'd like to check out the Community Hub, or if you're not already on the Community Hub, I can invite you to join. That way you've got access to it. And like I say, it's just there to support ourselves when there's something that's maybe out with our skill or expertise or the remit of our service. If you need to find, for example, an organisation or helpline that will provide emotional support or bereavement support, or talk through support services for older people or veterans, this can hopefully be something that will help you find a service that's reputable but free, because all of the services and helplines listed there all come from like third sector, charity, public sector organisations. So hopefully that will be a handy wee tool and guide for everyone. It is a live document, meaning it's organic, it can grow. So if you've got suggestions on organisations to add or helplines to add, please do share it, because we can start to populate that and flesh it out so that we've got maybe not a non-exhaustive list of organisations, but lots to choose from to help make things easier when you're directing clients elsewhere. We do have some upcoming events, including our Money Guiders Conference, which is going to happen during Top Money Week in November. We are working hard to plan that, and we've got some exciting sessions as well as speakers for the event. So please keep posted for news on the Money Guiders Conference. We're probably going to start promoting it, I would say, in the next kind of couple of weeks, but it will take place during Top Money Week. So that is the week commencing the 4th of November, I believe. As always, any ideas, suggestions for the network, whether it's about events, whether it's about resources you would like to have created or curated to help with your practice, please let us know, because we are working on the Community Hub particularly, as well as our event programme. So we want to make sure the things you have access to in terms of your learning and development are going to be meaningful. So please don't ever hesitate or shy away from sharing your suggestions. Otherwise, we've got a few minutes left. Hopefully that's music to people's ears. You can have a wee breather before your next either meeting, appointment, or heavy task you've got, because I know you're all busy working away. Look out for the email that you'll get this afternoon, folks, with some information as well as a little feedback form, little evaluation. But other than that, I won't keep you on. Have a fantastic day, everyone, and have a wonderful weekend when it comes. And thanks again, Craig and Eva from Barclays, for coming along today.
No problem. Thanks for joining. See you later.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.